workmen's compensation, long-term health care insurance, and disability insurance are distinctly different. Workmen's compensation insurance covers workers who are injured specifically on the job. Long-term health care insurance, which we discussed on Smart Assets last week, pays for nursing home care, assisted living, or home care. Disability insurance covers a portion of your income if you become disabled and you're unable to work. And we are talking about disability insurance today. And joining us is Gabriel Hermann. He is an attorney with Insler & Hermann. Give us a call if you think you might be eligible, but you just are not quite sure. Gabriel, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
I think I really want to yield, first of all, to my colleagues, because your reaction to the story as was presented, a real-life case of a woman who did not get disability insurance and what her life is like now.
Well, it's a fascinating story, and I think it affects so many people. She's just one example of lots of people out there. But, you know, this is really confusing because there are so many kinds of insurance. I want to start with this Social Security disability benefits. Who is eligible for this typically?
Almost everybody in the country is eligible for Social Security disability, primarily people that pay into the Social Security system, which means wage earners, anyone that pays a FICA tax, as well as self-employed people, as long as they're paying the minimum that they're supposed to pay into Social Security.
What constitutes a disability? She got Parkinson's disease, and I think it's so interesting that this has nothing, you don't have to get injured on the job here.
No.
You just have to have something. So, for example, if I work in television and something happened to my voice and I couldn't do my job, would I be eligible for disability insurance? If, you know, what are the kinds of things that make you eligible? What wouldn't make you eligible for disability insurance? That might be a problem health-wise.
I think a better way to answer that question is what would make you eligible for Social Security. There are two types of disability, and people that commonly speak about disability, they're speaking about either Social Security disability or long-term disability insurance benefits. The example that you gave with a difficulty with your voice because of your profession, that would be more of an own occupation private disability policy.
Okay.
Depending on your age and your education and your work history, Social Security would make a determination about your ability to get their benefits. People that are younger, it's a little bit more difficult. People that are older that have a physically demanding job and they can't do that physically demanding job due to a physical problem, whether it's work-related or not work-related, those kinds of people would be more eligible.
And viewers, please feel free to call, because if we're confused in trying to figure this out, I bet you are too. 1-800-304-3638. And Gabriel can talk broadly about all the things Valerie raised, including this idea of buying private health care insurance to get your own extra coverage.
Could you tell people how the process works? Because one of the things, as we looked at Karen's case, was the reality is it was 5 years ago that she started this process.
Sure.
Has that first check arrived? Because when we interviewed her, it had not yet arrived.
I don't know, honestly. She was awarded the disability benefits. My office got the letter yesterday, and she got it, I think, 3 days ago. And I happened to know that she was awarded because I called the Social Security office to check with them, particularly because her disability was one of the 10 that Social Security almost automatically says, yes, you're disabled. But even in her case, it took her 4 months from the date that she filed for the benefits, which was almost 5 years after the date that she was actually diagnosed with the problem.
So it actually was one of those, the check is in the mail, probably still is, and hopefully
so when did
she's
she file?
receiving it.
I'm confused. She filed for benefits just 4 months ago, even though she was diagnosed 5 years ago?
Well, one of the things with her condition in particular, I'm just using her as an example, Parkinson's disease is a gradual process. I'm sure we are all familiar with media people that have the condition. Just because you have the diagnosis doesn't mean that you're disabled yet. And in her case, the manifestations of the problem didn't get so bad as to prevent her from working until close to a year ago. As she said during her case, she filed for the benefits last November. She's been awarded the benefits, and they're retroactive back to the date that she became disabled. So back to, I think it was February that she, or January, that she alleged her disability began.
Already we have callers. Jill from Florida, thank you for joining us. Go ahead, please.
Hi, how are you doing?
We're doing fine. What is your question or comment?
Well, I have scoliosis. I've had 2 spinal fusions. I'm 28 and I'm fixing to undergo a 3rd spinal fusion. I'm a court reporter, so sitting is a big part of my job. And I wanted to know if something were to happen in this next fusion, or if it's even worth having the other fusion if I can go ahead and file for the disability now, which I don't want to, but it's making my job is very difficult with a lot of back pain.
Okay. Well, obviously, not knowing enough about your condition and specifics related to your condition, I wouldn't be able to say, is it worthwhile to file or is it not worthwhile to file? The standard answer that I usually give my clients is that if you feel that you're not able to work, you could file for benefits. But if you feel that you can work, whether at your job or at some other kind of work, you should certainly go and try to do whatever kind of work you can do. At 28 years old, you don't want to be on disability essentially for the rest of your life, and you'll never get as much money from Social Security disability as you would get in a monthly paycheck or a weekly paycheck.
Gabriel, maybe you could just elaborate a little bit more, because here she is, 28. Sure. I think a lot of people think disability, even though they can understand what the meaning of it is, tend to think that's older people. It is not younger people. I think we need to address that issue.
Okay, disability is not specifically related to your age. It's related to your ability to do a job. So if an individual is unable to do a desk job or a standing job or a sitting and standing job, or there's so many different kinds of jobs in the world, but if a person's not able to do any kind of work, then they are disabled under Social Security's definition. I mentioned before there's own occupation, so if the caller from Florida has her own occupation and an own occupation policy that says, okay, if you can't be a court reporter, you can't work, then in a case like that, certainly she could file for the private benefits. Social Security would say, okay, you can't do your own job, but there is a possibility there's some other kind of work that you can do. And obviously that is a situation where attorneys would come into play, because we know what Social Security is expecting, and we know what to tell the doctors, or rather what to ask the doctors to articulate and to focus on with regards to a disability.
I've got a question for you, Gabriel, but first we're going to go to the caller, Sue in Florida. Go right ahead.
Yes, my question is, does mental health fall under disability if you were totally harassed and badgered from a particular supervisor at work and I'm unable to focus, and I am seeing a psychiatrist and a therapist right now, but does that fall under my disability insurance? I work for a major Fortune 500 company.
You're asking a private insurance policy?
Yes.
Okay, in private insurance policies, it might. There again, it's a question of what your doctors say about your medical problem, whether the symptoms that you're experiencing are specifically related to your job at your company, or whether they're related to doing any kind of work at all. With regards to Social Security disability, if you're the mental health or mental problems that you're suffering from right now translate into an inability to perform your work activities at your job and interfere with your daily activities in your home, then certainly there is a possibility that you can get Social Security there also.
Gabriel, just bottom line, for people who are in a situation where they're thinking, boy, I could really use this money, I can't work, should they make application? What are the first steps they take?
Well, the first step, in my opinion, is to call a lawyer and see whether or not it's worthwhile to, not even so much worthwhile to file, but get assistance going through the process. Social Security is a complicated applications process, and while the Social Security Administration makes efforts to make it go smoothly, the reality is that people that are on disability have so many things that are going on that they don't really want or shouldn't have to focus on answering questions specifically. We know what they're looking for, frankly, so we know how to phrase the answers, not to misrepresent the disability so much as to present it to the Social Security Administration in such a way as to maximize the likelihood of success, whether at the initial step or, if it's necessary, to appeal at whatever level of the process.
We're almost out of time, but are these benefits taxed?
They are taxed depending on what the total income is that you receive from your into your household, whether it's from investments or other household income from a spouse or other family member. I can't answer that. A good accountant will know the answer to that problem more clearly.
Well, Gabriel Hermann, thank you so much. And I just want to repeat for our viewers before we finish, you mentioned a website, Val, that people could check if they want more information. And Gabriel, if you have any suggestions, because it's a very complicated topic, people might want to follow up on their own.
We were to number one. You can go to cnnmoney.com/personal finance, and the story will run, because we're doing that on Smart Assets today. And then at the end of the program, we're going to put up the exact address again so that people have the website.
Gabriel, you have any suggestions?
Well, one of the things that I would recommend, obviously, if you could take a look at our website, you can contact me directly, and I will make every effort to answer the questions that you have. But our website also provides a lot of information with regards to Social Security, the Social Security process, and background.
And that's the one Valerie's going to have at the end of the program. Super. Gabriel Hermann, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Coming up next, a look at African American inventors, part of our Black History Month. Please stay with us.